Let's talk about our queen. That's right. Step aside Nancy Pelosi. There's a new queen in town. I'm of course talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, a shining beacon of light. Perfect segue opportunity, really, from the previous conversation about how Americans' brains have melted. This is what happens when your brain never existed to begin with. Marjorie Taylor Greene was also an early advocate, a proponent for, the elections being stolen, including the election ballot that she was on. She was an advocate for finding the truth about the California wildfires that happened during wildfire season, but apparently, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, it was Jewish space lasers and a litany of other insane things. But Marjorie Taylor Greene now has been siding with Kevin McCarthy and making waves, trying to become a institutional party defender. So, of course, for that reason, I suspect 60 Minutes decided to interview her.
She's gained her national celebrity, some say notoriety, with a sharp tongue and some pretty radical views, like her proposal for a national divorce, where red and blue states would go their separate ways. But she has managed in just 2 years in Congress to accumulate real power, landing on important committees and influencing the direction of Republican policies. Before Congress, she helped run the family construction company in Georgia, known to be smart and fearless, and has a history of believing in conspiracy theories. We interviewed her earlier this week, before former President Trump was indicted. We looked up some words that have been said about you.
Okay.
Why are they having fun together? Like, God, the media is so fucking lame and so fake.
Crazy, Q clown,
Oh,
Looney Tune,
didn't like that.
unhinged, moron.
Oh, okay, maybe this is
stuff.
good. Never mind.
Looks like the average troll in my Twitter feed.
I'm gonna let her cook. Not Marjorie, but I'm gonna let her cook.
The first reaction is Marjorie's crazy. Marjorie's extreme. Marjorie's a right-wing extremist. And then what will happen is my colleagues will go back home to their district and their own constituents are coming up and saying, are you supporting Marjorie? Do you agree with Marjorie? Have you co-sponsored Marjorie's bill? And then they find out, oh, maybe she's not crazy. And then they end up agreeing with me.
This is fueling her clout in the Republican Party, as is her record as a top fundraiser and a close advisor to Kevin McCarthy. After MTG helped him win the speakership, he rewarded her with positions on 2 powerful committees.
They're fucking close advisor. Yeah, she's advising his penis. Okay, listen. For the record, both of these people involved in this process are fucking awful. Like, I want to point something out here. In a lot of instances where if there's like a female in a powerful position and people say, oh, she fucked her way to the top, you're basically relitigating really patriarchal and oftentimes awful concepts. In Marjorie Taylor's case, she's not doing it for personal gain beyond personal pleasure. So I want to make you understand, first of all, I mean, she does not deserve the position that she's in, but we live in the United States of America, and the more dumb she is, and the more insane she is, and the more fucking unhinged she is, the more power that she gets in the Republican Party. That's besides the point. I'm not saying that she's fucking Kevin McCarthy allegedly, because she's going to get more clout within the Republican Party. Kevin McCarthy has no clout in the Republican Party. Yeah, he can assign committee positions and whatnot as the Speaker of the House, but ultimately, Kevin McCarthy is not viewed as like a favorable person. She's fucking Kevin McCarthy for sexual gratification is what I would say in a video game, allegedly, if I were to speculate on such matters.
Greene complains that the news media harp on things she did in the past, like, as in this video, chasing after a survivor of the Parkland, Florida school shooting.
Well, if school zones were protected...
This was so unhinged. God, she's so fucking insane, dude. Like, this was fresh off of the school shooting, too. Like, someone else pointed this out in my chat the other day when we were talking about, like, after Sandy Hook, America basically realized that there was no change coming for gun control because a bunch of, like, white children were, like, slaughtered, right? And nothing came of it. But after Parkland, it was also the victims and the survivors that were up for grabs. Like, you could go after survivors and victims of school shootings directly for the crime of them basically advocating for this to never happen to another person ever again, which is really fucked up. Like, we went from don't politicize this tragedy, which was always a deflection. It was bullshit anyway. We went from that to just straight up, no, you can like yell at people who survived a school shooting if they're saying that like this shouldn't happen ever again. This is really fucked up.
The Democrats are a party of pedophiles.
I would definitely say so. They support grooming children.
They are not pedophiles. Why would you say that?
Democrats support, even Joe Biden, the president himself, supports children being sexualized and having transgender surgeries.
Wow. I'm glad that this is, this is on 60 Minutes. Very cool. This is insane. Like, this is American politics. Where do we go from here? I feel like we've already hit we already put the pedal to the metal, right? Because, like, the worst thing you can say about a person, one of the worst things a human being can do, if not the worst thing, is pedophilia. This is now the argument of the Republican Party. Like, the average Republican, even when they disagree with someone like myself, someone who has expressly been anti-pedophilia, perhaps the most consistently throughout his entire career, even when someone disagrees with me on the internet, they immediately go, oh, this guy's a sex trafficker of children. That's where we're at now in this day and age. And it's always motherfuckers with like, lolly avatars that say it, which is funny for different reasons, but not hard hitting to be consistent about. In the United States of America, it kind of is a hard hitting thing to be, or hard thing to be consistent about, because there's a lot of fucking weird Republicans that simply cannot meet that metric for some weird reason. So no. If you look at the GOP, the state of GOP, it seems like every other week there's another person that's getting arrested for like sex trafficking minors or having like a shitload of child pornography in their fucking in their hard drives. So no, they also advocate for child marriage laws, another way to legalize pedophilia. So please, turns out it's real hard for the Republican Party to have a consistent message of anti-pedophilia. Having said that, however, what I'm trying to talk about here is where do we go from here? Because I feel like now that my enemies are all pedophiles box is opened, I don't know how else can they push the fucking metric? How else can they push the argument further? Because people just get more and more comfortable just saying shit like that. What do you do? Like, what is rock bottom if this is not it?
Even Joe Biden, the president himself, supports children being sexualized and having transgender surgeries. Sexualizing children is what pedophiles do to children.
Wow. Okay.
That's it? You're going to let it ride on that? Liberals will watch this and go, wow, Leslie Stahl, you are so brave for even facing this giant. The only thing past making this degree of false allegation is acting on the false allegations that you're making, which we're already seeing happen. Example, shooter going to the Pizzagate location. Yeah. Or bomb threats being made to like the Boston Children's Hospital. And I guess like the only thing beyond making bomb threats is like actually bombing. That's it. That's like the last moment. That's like the last thing that they can do eventually.
My question really is, can't you fight for what you believe in without all that name call?
Bro, pedo jacketing is not name calling. This is like a defamatory accusation that you are saying without saying that this is alleged. You're like you're airing this insane accusation. Remember, this is the same fucking Republican Party that cried because Hillary Clinton said that, Trump supporters were deplorables. They literally lost their minds. They're like, she's calling us deplorable. She's calling us deplorable. Meanwhile, this is now the modus operandi of the Republican Party. Like, they just straight up are like, yeah, Democrats are pedophiles, like all of them. Like, fuck Hillary Clinton, which, by the way, probably one of the few people that you could actually make that accusation towards, and it wouldn't necessarily be entirely incorrect. You know what I mean? But this is the same fucking group of individuals that were like, oh, they called us deplorables. This is the worst. They cried about that shit.
Well, I would ask the same question to the other side, because all they've done is call me names and insult me nonstop since I've been here, Leslie. They call me racist. They call me anti-Semitic, which is not true. I'm not calling anyone names. I'm calling out the truth, basically.
Pedophile?
They didn't say not true to the racist part. I like that she said they call me racist, which is true. They call me anti-Semitic, which is not true. I shouldn't have brought the racist part, actually. I agree with that. I am racist.
Born and raised in Georgia, she now lives in an upscale section of her home district in the northwest corner of the state. How many acres do you have?
I have 10 acres.
Her net worth is estimated at $11 million. But she says when she was a child, her parents struggled financially.
This is always so fucking funny. Like, yeah, we only had 10 acres when I was growing up. That's how I became a real estate developer, by taking on my daddy's place of work. That's right. We were so poor. My daddy's net worth was only $10 million.
She told us that her dad, an arch conservative, listened to right-wing talk radio all day long.
And naturally, me being with my parents a lot, I listened as well.
Your dad knew you as a politician. What did he think of your style?
Why are you guys laughing? Leslie, you're laughing at, like, you're humanizing a person who is a titan. You know what I mean? Like, you're humanizing the smiling titan. None of this is like, do some gotcha questions, dumbass. What the fuck's wrong with you? The only reason why somebody like Marjorie Titan Green should ever be broadcast on a legacy publisher like this is for the nape of the neck attack. A gotcha. Just hit him with some fucking real questions. Every Bernie Sanders interview with mainstream media is 1,000 times more contentious than this. Yes. Bernie Sanders gets a fuckload more shit from mainstream media for advocating for, like, taxing the wealthy and pushing for universal health care. Meanwhile, this psychopath has, like, made a political career for herself off of just calling Democrats pedophiles. And you got a dumbass Democrat sitting on the most libbed up fucking program being like, show us more about your cute family photos. This is basically the same exact concept behind, like, that age-old Zach Fox meme where it's like, this is what the headlines look like when a white person kills their entire fucking family. And it's like the dude in a jet ski. It's that, but on a political and a much larger scale, basically. Why the fuck are you elevating and whitewashing this, like, fucking weirdo?
With her now ex-husband, she worked for the family construction business.
Yeah, ask her about questions of that. Your marriage fell apart. How do you respond to the allegations that you were having sex with your, like, CrossFit instructor? What do you say to the allegations that you, like, you know, you're having sex with Kevin McCarthy? The only purpose for an interview like this should be to humiliate her. They do take that opportunity whenever it is someone who is, like, ostensibly a leftist even.
Green didn't discover her brazen gutsiness, she says, till after 2011, when she got hooked on CrossFit workouts. She got into the extreme exercising with a passion, ending up in competitions, gaining self-confidence.
Bro, this is insane. Like, this is a puff piece, dog. You're doing a puff piece on a woman who said all Democrats are pedophiles, like, 3 minutes into the puff piece. Hello? What's happening here? What the fuck is happening? She tweeted this 15 minutes ago. That's awesome. I'm so glad that, 60 Minutes offered this fucking freak, this fucking absolute monster, a platform like this. Dahl was harder on Trump and he walked out. Yeah, okay. But one is the fucking president, and you should be hard on the president regardless. And two, this person doesn't even deserve this. Like, they don't deserve a fucking puff piece from 60 Minutes. What are you talking about? You're comparing the motherfucking president to Marjorie Titan Green.
Shortly after she arrived in Washington, the Democratic-led House ousted her from her committees because of her past endorsement of violence against some Democratic leaders and her history of embracing QAnon that she explained in a speech on the House floor.
I stumbled across something, and this was at the end of 2017, called QAnon. I was allowed to believe things that weren't true, and that is absolutely...
Bro, that's crazy. Like, I mean, actually, the fact that she, like, openly states that she was, like, a QAnon supporter is enough to just, like, that is impeachable. Like, it shows that you don't have the actual mental fortitude for the job. Like, you failed a mental competency test.
Okay, did you ever apologize to Nancy Pelosi about the bullet to her head?
I didn't say that, so I don't...
Oh my God, I don't even care about this shit. Like, honestly, oh my God.
need to apologize for
Well,
words that weren't
didn't
mine.
you like it?
Other people also ran my social media. I don't think I did that.
She liked it. Oh, that's crazy. Hey, Leslie, I'm going to keep it $150 with you, Leslie. If you don't fucking address her saying every Democrat is a pedophile 3 minutes in, why do you think you can bully her into apologizing for a comment that she liked? The fuck do you mean, dude? What, like, somehow it's worse that there were so few likes? Yeah, I know. That she was like one of the 9 people that was like, this shit's fire. I love that. That makes it way funnier that you saw that. You could click on it and see one of the 9 people being, you know, Republican Congressperson Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Other people also ran my social media. I don't think I did that.
He's like, I didn't do that. One of the aides that I hired to be a piece of shit did it, except I actually did do it, but who gives a fuck? You're posting this, but like, I will forever hold on to being the first guy who made this lock, saying that she looks like a Titan. This is all a part of the process metabolizing. Exactly. This is all a part of the process metabolizing her into a system that began when she allied with Kevin McCarthy. Yes, I said this exact same thing when I saw the first promo video cut for this. The moment that she became a supporter of Kevin McCarthy, and the moment that she tweeted out, you should not be having a violent protest for Donald Trump, that was the moment where she became a regular Republican. And if you're a regular Republican, mainstream media will defend you. They'll attack you when you fuck up. They'll attack you when you say unhinged things. But ultimately, they will also play the role of whitewashing your background, whitewashing your worldview. Time and time again, we have seen the examples that liberal mainstream media, which is a defender of capitalism, considers far-right fascist ideas to be less of a threat to the regular order of business and the continuation of capitalism than left-wing ideals that would otherwise be considered moderate social democratic reforms in pretty much every other comparable OECD nation. Depending on where you are with your politics, how far down the capitalist dystopian hellhole that you're in, this concept is interchangeable. But the principle still stands. You can always go more to the right, especially as it pertains to social issues. You can make a mockery and portray your marginalized communities as like the real villains of society as hard as you want to, as long as you are not hurting the bottom line of corporations and the mega wealthy.
Did you apologize for your position on Parkland, Florida?
What was my position on Parkland, Florida?
That it was a false
I don't know
flag?
if you actually have my position. No, I never said Parkland was a false
Did
flag.
you-
No, I've never said that.
Exactly, angry face. It's called a payoff to keep his mouth shut. She was a false flag planned shooting.
Here are some of the things you've said. That America should have a Christian government, that abortion should be banned nationally, that you want to defund the FBI, you want immigration to stop for 4 years. You've said those things, correct?
So yeah, these are some of my views.
Dude, this is really good. It's really good to just keep saying, like, look at all your unhinged ideas that you literally got success over. I'm just going to read them out loud to you. And then when you say they're great or I never said that, I'm going to offer no pushback. Like, I'm going to offer zero pushback.
The Constitution, the very First Amendment, prohibits having a religion in the government.
Yet the founding fathers quoted the Bible constantly and were driven by their faith.
That's sick, man. That's cool. Hey, Leslie Stahl, thanks for posting this. Yeah, they also own slaves. Like, literally just... The worst part about it is that, like, because the overwhelming majority of people in her fandom are stupid, this doesn't even work. If your expected audience is fucking stupid, stupidity will win. Truth will not win. Despite citing the Bible, as the founders did, or even having slaves, as the founders also did. Your counter is, well, they still intended this to be a secular nation. So what do you have to say to that is the follow-up in that situation, if you want to even take them seriously. Obviously, the best thing you can do is not have Marjorie Taylor Greene on 60 Minutes at all. Okay, that's number one. But if you're going to have her on, least you could do is just like provide effective counters, or at the very least have a couple fucking gotcha moments where you do like actual journalism. Like, this is the third worst option out of those 3 outcomes that I just mentioned. You platformed a psycho, You didn't prepare for any kind of, pushback. So you're just basically just offering her a platform. And you're even doing a puff piece. You're like showing her do CrossFit and humanizing her by talking about her family and shit like that.
Back in the 1980s, Sanders had some positive things to say about the former Soviet Union and the Sandinistas in Nicaragua.
And everybody was totally convinced.
Here he is explaining why the Cuban people didn't rise up and help the U.S. overthrow Cuban leader Fidel Castro.
He educated the kids, gave them health care, totally transformed the society.
Every single thing that he said there is correct.
But it's unfair to simply say everything is bad. When Fidel Castro came into office, you know what he did? He had a massive literacy program. Is that a bad thing? Even though Fidel Castro did it?
There's a lot of dissidents imprisoned in Cuba.
That's right, and we condemn that.
In this very moment, Vanderbilt kin Anderson Cooper single-handedly provides more pushback to Bernie Sanders in a situation where Bernie is objectively correct and on the right side of history and objectively correct than Leslie Stahl is doing to Marjorie Taylor Greene when she is objectively incorrect. Do with that information what you will. Understand liberal media a little bit better and where their biases lie. Look at another one.
How much will that cost?
Obviously, those are expensive propositions, but we have done our best on issue after issue in paying for them.
Do you know how much, though? I mean, do you have a price tag for all of this?
We do. I mean, the price tag is... It will be substantially less than letting the current system go. I think it's about $30 trillion.
That's just for Medicare for all.
Just Medicare for all. Yes.
Do you have a price tag for all of these things?
No, I don't. We try to. No, you mentioned making public colleges and universities tuition free and canceling all student debt. That's correct. That's what I want to do.
But you say you don't know what the total price is, but you know how it's going to be paid for. How do you know it's going to be paid for if you don't know how much the price is?
Marjorie Taylor Greene went on 60 Minutes and said all Democrats are pedophiles. And Leslie Stahl said, okay, let's move on. Look at you doing CrossFit. Bernie Sanders advocates for social spending and policies that are objectively good for American society, policies that exist in other comparable OECD nations. And Anderson Cooper is like, so what's up? Sean the Black is correct. The answer to any how much will this cost is what price would you put on humans' lives? Exactly. But of course, Anderson Cooper is a Vanderbilt. Why is it that the 60 Minutes conversation with Marjorie Taylor Greene features her insane statements about how she said all Democrats are pedophiles and that this needs to be a Christian nationalist nation? Why is it that Leslie Stahl moves away from that subject matter faster than Anderson Cooper hammers and pummels fucking Bernie Sanders over things like we should have health care? It's not that Leslie is the weakest link of 60 Minutes, such a lazy interviewer and journalist. Do not misunderstand. You are channeling systemic reasons into the acts of an individual. Even the very fact that maybe Leslie Stahl is a non-contentious interviewer and she was not presented to Bernie Sanders as an option, and instead it was Anderson Cooper who was chosen to do this interview, to conduct this interview. Even that act alone implies systemic biases at play. This is a part of how manufacturing consent operates within a capitalist organization of the economy. This is how the media works. You clicked away before clips after that of Anderson Cooper watching Bernie do CrossFit, though? Dude shredded? Yeah.
The question for her and the country is, can she expand her brash MTG brand beyond the right wing?
This is a very nefarious and perhaps deliberate manipulation technique to soften Marjorie Taylor Greene's Christian nationalist fascist rhetoric by presenting it as empty and brash. You are nullifying the actual interest from the crowd for that kind of sentiment, and you are basically nullifying what she's doing. You're neutralizing it. You're turning it into something that is like a normal part of the American process, the normal part of the American political process. You're lending it credence, you're legitimizing it, and then perhaps worst of all, you're turning around and just saying like she's brash. She's brash. Like she's demonstrating bravery for coming out and saying these kinds of things, or that she's simply just rude. She's not simply just rude. She's a fucking fascist. I mean, I don't know what else to say beyond that. Like, she is literally just a fascist who is claiming that all of the people that criticize her are pedophiles. She is a psychopathic, insane fascist.
Marjorie Taylor Greene on her opposition to U.S. support for Ukraine.
Ukraine is not the 51st state.
I'm willing to bet if we watch this, there would be significantly more pushback towards Ukraine, her sentiments surrounding Ukraine, than anything else.
So you're opposed to giving weapons and aid to help Ukraine fight off the Russians. It strikes me that that's what Putin wants.
I don't really care about what Putin...
Even the way that was framed. Look, that is literally framed better than the pedophile question. She immediately said, if you don't want to give money and arms to Ukraine, you're helping Putin. That's contentious. That's contentious. That's good framing. That is what you're supposed to fucking do. No, that's what you're supposed to do. She's doing it. She's basically saying, like, you're helping the enemy. That's pushback. It's light, and it should be. It should literally be way more aggressive on all fronts. This is seasoned journalism dealing with a psycho. Thank you. I agree. And I think that that's bad. Seasoned journalism is what Seymour Hersh does. Seasoned journalism is what Jane Meyer does. Seasoned journalism is what Amy Goodman does. Seasoned journalism in liberal media, seasoned journalism of this sort is exactly what's wrong with journalism in this country. It's who you attack or what issues you actually plant your foot in the ground on that fucking matters.
I voted for the first resolution to denounce Putin and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What I have voted against is funding a war in Ukraine. The entire time I have been saying the United States needs to be pushing for peace in Ukraine, not funding a proxy war with Russia.
Oh God, this is making her look reasonable too. God damn it. She's not reasonable. And the reality is that this is a trick. Noam Chomsky calls this out all the fucking time. This is a trick that pro-war American propagandists utilize to make themselves seem anti-war. You should be against war for humanitarian reasons. But these people are not anti-war. And they're certainly not anti-war for humanitarian reasons. They're anti this war. They're anti this war. What does that mean? They always will follow that up by saying, we need to do a war in Mexico instead. Why are we utilizing our resources on the war in Ukraine when we should be utilizing them on a better war? So never forget that. When someone says, this war is unacceptable, and then they follow it up by saying, we have better ways of utilizing our resources, and that doesn't pertain to like fixing America's infrastructure or anything like that, but instead pertains to other wars that we should be engaging in, understand that you are talking to a war hawk. They just don't like the war in Ukraine.
If we withdraw our aid...
Look, she's still doing pushback. Look at that. Look. What did I tell you? Even before I watched it, I said, Leslie Stahl is going to fucking offer significantly more pushback on her takes on Ukraine than anything else.
I've looked. I cannot find anywhere where Putin says he wants to invade Poland.
I'm asking if that doesn't worry you and that we'll be concerned to the point that almost will be attacked because we're a member of NATO.
We are a member of NATO, and we have a treaty. Ukraine is not a NATO member nation, but look at us now. We are funding a proxy war in...
If anything, this kind of sentiment, again, further humanizes her, further normalizes her position, makes her seem more reasonable to the average American, because the average American is not fucking on Reddit jerking off to like war porn videos that are getting upvoted to r/all every fucking day. The average American does literally look at this and go, I don't really understand what's going on in Ukraine. None of those countries or none of those fucking places are important to me. Why the fuck are we giving $100 billion there? Fix the goddamn potholes, bitch. So this psychotic warmonger ends up looking good here for someone who is not like hyper invested in NatSec Twitter. Azov's battle cry is thanks for the gold contracts. You're like, no, the average American doesn't understand that shit either. Like, they don't give a fuck about like, I don't know, Nazis fighting on either side of this fucking war that's happening in Ukraine. Okay, no one gives a fuck about that. I'm talking about people who just like don't know anything, I'm talking about people who are just like randomly hearing $100 billion number, seeing that it's going into fucking Ukraine and going, why the fuck is this not being sent? Why is this not being spent on American priorities? And she's not even genuine about like money going to Ukraine. She doesn't give a shit. Please understand. She doesn't give a shit. She's saying that because it's politically fashionable for her to come across as contentious to the Democratic position, portraying the Democratic Party as the real warmongers. Meanwhile, we should be using our resources on other wars that are better. That's the reality. She comes across as solid to those people. And the reason why I brought up Mexico is because I've heard her say this before. I've covered it on this broadcast. Marjorie Taylor Greene has literally said, why are we spending money on Ukraine? We should be invading Mexico to go after the cartel. Yeah, I mean, there you go. This is the reason. Thank you, Chatter.
There's so many things that we can stop. Another thing we need to stop is funding the war in Ukraine. Don, I can't understand why we're fighting a war in Ukraine.
I can't.
And we're not bombing the Mexican cartels who are poisoning Americans every single day. And I know that sounds extreme. I'm not talking about the Mexican government or the Mexican people. I'm talking about the cartels. They're murdering Americans.
They're doing it in America these days. I mean, when I interviewed Kevin on this podcast, he was talking about like they came across the border and shot a baby in the face. That was, the child of one of.
Bro, why is the fucking biggest coke head talking to the biggest pill head about bombing Mexico because drugs are coming over the border? What are you, fucking crazy? Where are you gonna get your fucking cocaine, Donald? Where are you gonna get your fucking aftermarket Zans and your Ambien bars?
These things up in California, and it's like. Wait. The cartels are committing crimes on American soil, and we're just sitting back and like, oh, it's not.
He's literally saying we should do what the cartels are doing on American soil by shooting babies in Mexico. It's time for America to go down to Mexico and shoot some babies in the face.
What about the argument that if we withdraw our money and our weaponry now, China will read that?
Dude, this has so far been a minute and 50 seconds of her offering. Again, remember where she's pushing back on how she's pushing back. Pedophile, all the entirety of the Democratic Party are pedophiles. I sleep. You say that, you don't want to support the war in Ukraine. Look at what she's doing. There you go.
China will say the Americans can't be relied upon, and it might encourage China to invade Taiwan.
Now you're asking what happens if we just pull out of Ukraine.
Right.
Let me ask you a question back. Why can't we push for a peace deal in Ukraine?
But then
why is war the only answer?
The Russians will be rewarded with territory.
There you go. She literally has a position on this. She cares about this. She's advocating for this because this is the only thing she gives a shit about. I'm not making an assertion on Ukraine or whether she's valid, whether Leslie Stahl is valid in offering pushback here. Do not misunderstand me, okay? Stop saying, is she wrong, though? That's not the conversation we're having. The conversation that we're having is currently surrounding media literacy. I'm trying to scoop out as best as possible for some of you dense motherfuckers how this works in the fucking media. This is supposed to be an objective news outlet. Why does she not give a fuck about half of the unhinged fascist rhetoric, but only cares about her takes on Ukraine? Not only that, but as far as my own personal point of view on this matter, if you want to talk about like what Leslie Stahl is saying here and how it, regardless of my own personal opinion on the matter, how it comes across to the average person that's watching this, this is the one area where she's like hitting on policy. And her fucking counter to it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene's counter to her perspective, unironically only looks good to you if you're already a major proponent to arming Ukraine, offering unlimited support to Ukraine, and thinking if you already have the assumption that like Russia will take over Ukraine and then Russia will attack Poland. But if you're not of that mindset, and many Americans are not, it's more of a 50-50 split than I think, in my opinion, regardless of how much mainstream media pushes for it. She comes across to a broader audience than she normally would be able to market herself. She comes across as a normal person, a sane person in the situation.
It's not about right and wrong, but let me say this, it's not about what's right and wrong in Ukraine, because we're the United States of America.
Now she can posture from a patriotic sentiment, which will play well to not only her base of unhinged psychos, but also a broader majority of Americans. Again, it's hard for this community to recognize what she's saying is sane because you already have a position on the matter. Never forget that this community already, as it, because you're in here every day, nonstop consuming media, non-fucking stop, you already have a perspective. It's in some instances misguided in my opinion, but it doesn't matter. You have a very hard-crafted position on this matter. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people just look at it and go, why the fuck are we giving Ukraine $100 billion? You either think that that's too much and that we should be pushing for peace, or you think it's not enough, or you think it's just right. And no, Ukraine needs to fucking purge the Russian orcs from its borders down to the last Ukrainian, right? If you have that mindset, you're going to agree with what Leslie Stahl is saying. But remember that a lot of people do not have that same sentiment. They do not represent the same values or believe in the same values that you do on this matter. So the only time she offers pushback, Marjorie Taylor Greene looks significantly more coherent. Why don't you destroy her arguments and make her look like a fucking baboon when you are talking about all the other shit? That way, you don't have to even defend the Ukraine stuff all that much. How is that pro-war? Ukraine didn't start the war. Supplying a defender is a righteous thing. I know it is. You're right. Okay, listen. Russia started the war. Russia is responsible. I agree. I do not disagree with this. But when Marjorie Taylor Greene turns around and says, why can't we push for peace? You counter that by saying, well, peace is maybe not so good in this situation because what if Putin then goes into Poland? Or what if China goes into fucking Ukraine? Or what if China goes into Taiwan? All of a sudden, you're defending it with other hypotheticals when she's basically talking about something that might even be completely unrealistic. But the counter to that should be, no, we want peace too.